I tried to go to bed last night and ended up staying up till like 4.
Oh yeah, I'm same here, mate. I have good intentions of getting a good night's sleep, and it's just not happening at all at the moment.
Yeah, I was 2 o'clock. I tried to go to bed. I was talking to Morgan because she had an eventful day with her grandchild being born. And
Oh, it's marvelous, absolutely marvelous. I
yeah,
tune in very, very strongly with Morgan's energy. I really
yeah,
do. You know.
yeah. I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
They changed something on the screen here, man. All right, let me see if I can find a. Let's
Change me
see.
face if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I've
can
been
put
trying to do it for years, not working.
we can put up a donkey's ass,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
donkey arse. Oh, okay. They're delayed.
Well,
That's fine.
there's a song called Delaney's Donkey. Have you ever heard of it?
No, Delaney's donkey.
Yeah,
No.
by an Irish fella called Val Doonican. It was one of my dad's favourite songs. Yeah, I'll send you a link, mate. It's very funny.
Val Doonigan.
Yeah, he was a lovely, lovely Irish man. He used to be in a rocking chair and he sing the most beautiful songs, you know. And he always reminds me of my dad. They've got the same old sort of lilt, the Irish lilt.
I love that. Hello, Shanine. Thank you for having me on your show today. That was beautiful.
It was.
Yeah, she's a beautiful man. She's got that same energy like Morgan too. Patricia Satchwell, Debrielle, Michael Gabay, Kelly Bird, Mary Cooper, Serpa, Tuomanen, Sarai Williams, Beth Bushlaw, Sean Warren, my friend from South Africa's in the house. All right. And then Jeanette Allen from Australia. She's up early. Got 25 people in the house. Denise Chadwick, if these shows resonate with you, please share. Yeah, we talked about it on the show on Shanine's show today. We're Easter weekend. We're launching this thing. We're hoping to do 36-hour marathon. I don't know, but I know we're going to launch that weekend. So
fantastic.
We just have to have a meeting. What is today? Today Thursday or Friday? Today's Wednesday.
Wednesday,
oh my God.
Yeah.
So Friday. Yeah, my Friday. We have a meeting, and then that'll give us what, a week? About 10
it's
days.
marvelous, mate. As you say, it all feels topsy turvy sometimes, but I feel we're right in the middle of the stream here. Even though our heads may tell us something else, my heart tells me, you're doing all right, Joe. Just keep going, really.
I agree totally. Because we're just reflecting off each other. So whatever you see happening over here is happening over there. Whatever's happening to me is happening to you.
Oh yeah.
It's so. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I usually say thank you. Please share if this show resonates, so we can stay above the algorithms at Facebook. They started to hit us again on it. I've noticed.
Yeah.
But we're going to be able to simulcast on Facebook, which we're going to do for the first 2 to 4 weeks. I'm not speaking. I mean, we still have a couple of meetings to have, but I think that's what the idea is, to keep running on Facebook and YouTube until enough people have crossed over, and then we'll cut it off. So,
what do you see crossed over? You mean transitioned?
Yeah, man, we're going to be on the heavens turntables, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We need all the help we can get, definitely. Yeah. And we're getting loads of help, aren't we? I mean, I know I've gone through hell over the last 3 months. It's been murder, to be honest with you, and I hear people having these big revelations. I get loads of revelations, but the last 3 months has been like murder. It's been hell for me. There's been a part of me that's always calm. It's always cool. It's always collected. And apparently that's how I come across most of the time in my professional life. But, like you were, saying to Shanine before, there's all this. It's like a cyclone. And if you just pop your head in a bit, it just takes you away or takes me away, And then I've been given a sort of a set of tools, if you like, to reconnect me quite quickly, So I use those tools. It's like a toolbox with all sorts of spanners that will fit any nut, So it could apply to anybody in this in Soulogy. Some people need a mallet, like yourself.
Right. I need a mallet, man.
Some people need just a small screwdriver, and stuff.
Sledgehammer. Yeah, some people just have to tweak.
Yeah,
Morgan can do that. Morgan just get a screwdriver, tweak, I'm done. I get a sledgehammer, like wham,
Oh,
right on
same
top
here,
of me.
mate. Same here. I need like takes me a long time to see the message. I've got something in me that thinks, no, that doesn't apply to me. And about 6 months later, I think, oh yes, it did.
Hey, so last month. Oh my God, I'm looking at this New York Times 410. Today's 410. These are the things that, yeah, Shanine was talking about, where they just keep coming and coming, these synchronicities. So, but last month, and we can talk about whatever you want to. Sure, it's a platform for you. We can talk about the last 3 months of pure hell you've been going through, how you got through it, and that type of thing. Some of your process modalities and techniques. But last month, something came up about. I don't know if it was a show or if I did a post, and it was about the masculine energy that kind of had landed, and I think it involved sacred sex.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I was wondering. I was just wondering to myself this morning, what was it? Because you wrote me and said, hey, if you want to have a show on this particular subject, let me know.
Yeah, I think more and more men. I've always explained to you that I see myself as gay from the waist up. In that my from the waist down I work as a masculine, and from the waist up I work as a feminine. And I've always been more inclined towards feminine energy, pretending to be macho, and it's never worked for me. I've done loads and loads of things, like played rugby, and I was always always terrified. I used to have to get a load of alcohol down me before I played. Then some demon would come out of me. So I played quite well, but it was all fueled by alcohol. When the levels of alcohol went down, I just became more sensitive again, and stuff. I've done years and years of all sorts of different martial arts, and I've tried to build my physical body. I do a lot of physical work and stuff like that, but always on the inside, I was supremely sensitive. And yeah. Let's not go down the chest route again, no, let's not do that. No, because I'm developing a fine pair. Honestly, I really am. But I've I'm seeing more and more of my mates, my macho mates, who do all sorts of bodybuilding and stuff like that, basically becoming softer and softer and softer, and even expressing it now. And they're talking about the fears and stuff. So when I talk about my story and what I've gone through, they start opening up, really. And I get involved in a lot of men's groups where we just throw everything onto the table and say, look, this is the way I'm really feeling, and that whole dynamic is changing so rapidly now. It's a bit like the bikers, excuse me, I was talking about before. There was such a sense of nurturing and opening and everything else. I mean, and pets as well. The whole thing. The whole thing is, everybody seems to be opening up now to animals and understanding how animals are living beings as well, with souls who communicate. I mean, we've got a black cat, as you would, called Pumpkin Delaney Walsh. She's very, very posh, but it's almost like she started to have a conversation with me now, and it's just unbelievable. So all these things are opening up to me. I find myself now, when I'm walking in nature, there's almost a communication going on with every single thing, and it's like almost walking in soup all the time. And I'm feeling this, but so are a lot of the men that I knock around with, really. But regarding the sex side of things, I was brought up in a very, very strict Irish Roman Catholic background, and even the mention of sex, even the mention of the word was a sin, and at the age of 7, I would hear this word, and I'd still have a fear about it, at the age of 7, and I didn't really understand what it was. But as I started to grow and I got these natural feelings, I became like a yoga expert. I used to close my throat down, push this feeling down, which was a natural feeling, and then it would go and hide in my psyche somewhere. And then, it started to cause all sorts of perversions and misdirections. So I've understood, and this was part of my PhD, really, was most of us are suffering from repressed, suppressed, misdirected natural instincts, that have been conditioned over time by the cultures that we live in. And it was massive in me, Todd. And what happened is, as I got older and started to drink, this would all come back online, and I would get this feeling of empowerment, and all this repressed reactive energy, right, would all come to the surface then, and that's part of the addiction to drink, because it used to release all this pent up energy. And I could sort of, when I was drinking, I could justify and take in the actions that I was doing. And then the next morning I'd wake up when the drink levels had gone down, and I'd be absolutely horrified by my behavior, And I can see by the way you're smiling that you understand this, and I know that you do. But, I used to feel so guilt ridden that I've become some sort of a maniac, and so, but here's the peculiar thing. It was such a fantastic feeling of empowerment that I just had to drink again to get the same feeling, So, So go on, mate.
No, I was going to say that's a really great lead in, because and I talked about this, but I mean, I don't know if this is what triggered the message you sent to me, but so that you're right, that power that you're talking about, that power that you obtained in the moments when you were most likely drinking, which gave you courage and less inhibitions and so on. There was a power in that energy, and you didn't have to have alcohol to do it. I mean, I'm talking about the masculine's journey, or the first part of it, the false masculine's journey.
Yeah.
The false masculine's rising. Let's put it that way. Maybe there's 4 legs to it. So we had that. Like, we had that in intimacy. We had that in competitiveness at work, protecting our tribe or our family, or, being a man, and there was a power. There was a power that was respected and expected. Okay. And neither one of those are 100% good, just like everything else. So then the new, or the sacred information came in. The divine feminine energy went and did what she did, which means he had to do it, or that energy that we call the divine masculine had to do it. And so in that process, and I'm just speaking of my own experience, everything got taken away. Everything got taken away. My virility, my erection, my self-image, my ego identities, everything got ripped to shreds, right? And it was a difficult thing. I was in a relationship, I mean, I got a lot, everything else seems to be going fine in my life, and then I got stripped to nothing. Like, I literally didn't have anything to hold in my hand, if you know what I mean.
I do.
So my balls were gone. And then this is what I found interesting about what you said. And then I started to get comfortable with things. I started to understand there was a sacred sexual path that that was less about intimacy in my divine union and more about getting to know myself again. You know what I mean? Getting to know. And so what ended up happening is that it still wasn't like perfect or anything, but on the human side of me. But what happened was I started to get glimpses, because I wondered. I said, I can do the soft thing. I can be sensitive. I got it all, man. I got it. I got all that. But where is the power? Where is that power? And I know we can't be the old warrior archetype, and we can't be the old alpha male archetype, but where is that power? Because I know it's there. And then, this just goes back maybe to a couple of months ago, then the power started to come in. And that's what you were talking about, triggered it in me, was that power, like the power of those bikers being benevolent and helping these children. There's a power in that softness and sensitivity and reality that is incredibly much more, light years more powerful than the old masculine warrior power, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
No, I agree, mate. I can see that when I stopped drinking and, got my wake up call and stuff like that I was almost taken right back to the seat of power, and the seat of power is not sex. It's the first root. It's the root chakra, which is associated with the adrenal glands that produce adrenaline. So that's the most powerful hormonal response in the body, and it's there for our personal physical protection. And then as we grow, and so what's supposed to happen in a normal, natural, nurturing upbringing? We're supposed to be able to be allowed to stand on our own 2 feet and get a sense of our physical groundedness, right? But if we're over nurtured or we're not nurtured at all, then we start to develop misdirections in that thing, in that first grounded bit. And then as we grow older then, and we move then into the next level of hormones, which is the gonads, right? If we haven't got it right in the first root chakra, then we start to become insecure in those departments, if you like. So the sex hormones then, I mean, I was brought up, as I say, in a very, very repressive, suppressive environment where anything to do with any intimacy or anything like that was frowned upon. And you could sense this in the atmosphere of our home, So, as I say, even before I knew what it was all about, I knew that it was a mortal sin to have everything to do with this, And I remember, I used to have dreams that the devil would be there waiting for me at 7 years of age. And all this was so confusing because I could pick up energies. I was very sensitive to energies. And because I couldn't work it out, it all became a great big sort of shroud around me, And I can remember being terrified and fearful of all these things, So then when we move then into the next chakra, if you like, the social chakra, if you haven't got the first two balanced, which is basically sex and power, right? If you're drinking, then you can be on the lookout all the time. But if you're not drinking, you tend to hide away in the corner, I can remember going to places where I'd be in the corner. I'd be terrified to talk to anybody. So I'd be like a little wallflower in the corner, sort of eating curled up sandwiches from the buffet and trying to look like an intellectual, as though, oh yes, I can see this pretending. But then I get a few drinks down me, and then it was, get out me way, I'm coming through, and I'd be up on the dance floor giving it loads, So when I got my awakening call, I was taken back right down to the root chakra, and I've had to really, really introspect, if you like, to look at the areas where can you stand up for yourself and can you back off? If you can honestly stand up for yourself and back off when you need to, then you're grounded and flexible in that one. And then you move up to the sex one, the sacred, sacral sex, And I don't see sex as a sort of swear word anymore. I see this whole process as a scientific sort of experiment.
It is.
I've become, they call it, I mean, lots of yogi teachers call it inner engineering or inner technology. I refer to it as my inner operating system. Now I'm balanced now. I feel completely and utterly balanced. I've had to do some real soul searching about that, and I'm very, very happy now in the take it or leave it department. Now some people may say, well, yeah, that's because you're 64 years of age. But no, I still get those feelings, but it's what do you do with them now? And I honestly know that when you get these feelings, right, if you open your heart, it can be transformed then into creative energy. But if you don't get it past your second chakra, it's still causing problems. And you can pretend till the cows come home, but you're still suppressing it, and it will still cause problems. So an open heart is a transformational process for any energy, for anger, resentment, frustration. But the point about it, I call it waste management, because to me it's it's cleaning up your act all the way through those seven chakras, and the Kundalini experience. Kundalini to me is like a huge big tidal wave of potential, and as it's coming in now more and more powerfully, a lot of people are having to go back and really, really dig deep and look at their ideas, their attitudes towards power and towards sex, because if they don't get balance there, this big tidal wave is going to sweep them away. That's where I feel,
Well,
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I like what you said too, because we can't look at ourselves. Part of this awareness is not looking at ourselves as strictly physical. So there's the non-physical, or we call it soul or the spirit or whatever, the etheric body. And so what you said about if you keep, this sexual energy is meant to run through the whole channel, It's not meant to just be, if we were strictly physical beings, okay, then the climax, no pun intended, the apex of the rise of the Kundalini or the sacred sexual energy would stop at the sacral.
Yeah.
It'd stop at the sacral. You know, maybe we'd get it into the heart if we had some type of relationship like lovebirds or, you know, some type of animal, some animals have, you know. But the thing is, and I can even draw it to my own situation, like I was talking about earlier. So actually, when this started happening, was about 6 weeks ago, when Morgan was leaving, and so we had been on this path, but I knew it was all happening within me. I went from that and started to get that power back, but it was like in baby steps, and a lot of it had to do with what you're talking about. I thought, oh, first thing I thought is the energy came in and went into my sacral. I thought, oh, I'm going to be just fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I got stuck on that, and guess what? It said, you don't got it yet. And then I allowed it to go through, and I said, well, I've done this before. I've transmuted my sexual energy into my work, into the creative process, but I was coming from a different place. But oh my God, it's the same place. It's the same energy. So I can stop here. I can go here. I can go to the heart. I can go blow it out the crown. And I started to gain this power back. And this really occurred, I think, about 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I could really feel it coming in, not just for me, but for the collective. And I said, daddy's home now.
Yeah.
That energy has landed, and I'm feeling it, and I'm living proof of it. And what you said about, the way I would say this, that what you said was, if you just keep it in the physical, really all you can do with it, and we've all been there, okay, is take it to the highest sexual climax you can in the physical sense.
Yeah.
But if you allow it to flow, it's not that you're never going to get that feeling like you said. It's just you're going to get it everywhere and in all aspects of your infinite life.
Yeah, and I think it's learning to get out of the way and allowing the energy to transform us. You know, I think that's the hardest part, is to get the ego out of the way. And really, I think the only way you can do that is to express creatively from the heart. You know, because if you don't have an open heart, and this is my personal experience, it goes from the bottom to the head straight away, you know, and that's when we could become hot-headed, unbalanced, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, a blocked sacral chakra, you know, what I've seen recently is that a lot of the stuff that I went through wasn't personal. It was cultural conditioning, you know, and I'm only talking about my personal lived experience, but Irish Roman Catholics, right? You know, not only they call alcoholism the Catholic disease, they call it that, you know, but also there's a lot of other stuff that goes with that, like pathological jealousy, right? You know, and real controlling stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there was all that male, masculine, patriarchal stuff. But I can see this goes really, really, really deep. And my feeling is that I'm being taken back through my personal stuff, which, you know, I hardly ever think about the past anymore. I mean, it takes an effort for me to remember anything from my past now, right? But I've been guided back through my own family, through my parents and grandparents, and even further back through the Irish Celtic cultures, you know, and then further back all the way. And it reminds me of what I was taught about Buddhism, that to be free, we have to be guided back and be released from all those other obstructions. Jason Estes talks about this, you know, he called them ridges, you know. Yeah. And I think the DNA really is from the Big Bang, right? All these sort of fear-based obstructions, you know, we have to go all the way back and be guided through those to let them go, to get back to our original face, you know. And I think what I've been taught, Todd, and, you know, as we become more and more body sensitive, you know, we can, if we get a feeling in our body and an emotional disturbance, the idea is to stop, take a step back and ask our bodies, what is it that you're trying to show me? You know, and it will point out two things. And I've mentioned this to you before, you know, it will point out a fear block or a pride block. You know, there's only those two things, really. There's the fear that's coming from the emotional child, and there's the pride block that's coming from the intellect, if you like, you know. And Freud's talked about this, Carl Jung, loads and loads of people, you know, mystic teachers have talked about this for ages. But my thing now is, it's all very well and good knowing the theory of this, but, you know, in order to embody it, and this is just the way I explain it, we've got to walk through the fear. And as soon as we walk through the fear, we're taking practical steps to overcome the obstructions that are holding us back from being totally and utterly free. You know.
Yeah.
And I think I'm seeing more and more people, because when the shift started to happen, or it started to really increase in amplitude, if you like, in 2012, once we got past that 21st of December, it was almost like this tidal wave of truth was coming in to cleanse us. But nobody, and I've said this before, and I get this really, really strongly, nobody is going to get away with anything at all. That the whole of the human race,
I remember when I first had my wake up, everything was being spoken to me in very simple terms, very short little sentences or phrases. And one of them was, because they spoke to me in the term of soul highway, and it was nobody can miss a step on the soul highway. Nobody, there is no preferential treatment. Jillian Alexander, who was on here a few days ago, really good show. She talked about some sexual suppression implants or whatever blockages and all that in her own experiences. She was talking about what she's been exposed to. But she says, and this is important because this is the flip side of what you're describing does. When we are not embodying fully and owning our power, then it's open house and banquet on the table for anything wanting to feed on that energy. And, we've all been there in regard to what we used to call sex or sexual intimacy or physical sex in the physical, but also I think what she's referring to too is the non-physical. You were talking about feeling those energies at 7 years old and not knowing. I'm at the point now, and again, that's just from my universe, that even last night, as I was having an experience next door in the pasture, what we might call light and dark was all there. And I was getting that, hey, all of these things that happened in my life, that was me pulling that, I was pulling that part of me in. I was pulling that darkness in, that boogeyman in, to scare me, or whatever you want to call it, to wake me up. I mean, it's almost like, ascension is life itself. Like every moment is an opportunity for expansion. Once you get past the boogeyman syndrome, which so many people are now,
Funny you should say that, because about 3 nights ago, I was overwhelmed by fear. Now, I haven't had any fear for a long, long time. I've had things sort of creeping in and stuff like that, but I can sort of blow those away. But I was completely and utterly overwhelmed by fear, and it took me right back to that little tiny child, right? And once again, I applied the tools that I've been given, and it started to dissolve away, And I can remember spending most of my adult life with this shroud around me all the time, And the thing about drink was it temporarily disconnected me from that. But when the drink levels came down, then I was open season then for all these sort of, some people call them entities and whatever, but I only believe that you only attract what you give out, and so there's your personal unconscious, and then there's the collective unconscious, and I think all of us have to go backwards and experience basically every single experience and feeling that everybody in the human race has ever been through, and that's the only way that we'll all really understand each other at depth. Right.
Yeah, I think that the upbringing is significant as a metaphoric, as something in the physical you could actually see. You were Irish Catholic. That's a very Roman Catholic, very conservative. I grew up in South Texas on the Mexican border, and they used to do the whatever you call it, the services in Latin. When I was growing up, and by the way, the priest in my town, which was about 250,000 people, huge. The Catholic Church ran everything, owned everything, just like everywhere else, right? But they were either Irish monsignors or priests, or they were Spanish,
Yeah.
or later on Mexican. But the thing is, I can remember now, like you were talking about that, and I can remember from, I'm going to say, at least my earliest memory might have been 1.5 years old, to have a fear of being seen naked.
Yeah.
A deep, deep fear of being seen naked. Now, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Now, was it some type of, uh, molestation or something that has been compartmentalized until my psyche can fully take it? Or was it something that was brought in to this incarnation? Because everything that happened in those first few years with the influence of that church and just the cultural stuff onto my family and such regarding sex, okay, nudity, whatever, just made it worse. It just like almost like it was just next chapter of the same book. And so I think, we look at that in terms of I'm not just pinpointing the masculine today because we're talking energy, but this is why you had inspired you to reach out and do a show on this subject. But if you think about that, every single, in my opinion, just my opinion, every single one of these male incarnations and some female incarnations who have a majority of a masculine energy is that little boy who's afraid to be naked in front of anybody.
Yeah.
And what the hell? Think about the depth of the the embeddedness of that. That's incredible.
See, I at the age of 11, I went away to train to be a priest. They used to send the eldest child away. Then that was the sort of tradition, away from home into a boarding school, and we used to talk in Latin at 11 years of age. So the sort of indoctrination, if you like, started.
Mm-hmm.
And I was terrified all the time. I was away from my mother, and I was homesick all the time. We used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd be saying prayers in Latin, and I was basically just terrified. And every evening, I used to see things used to come in through the moonlight to me, and I could not sleep there at all. And I would tell the people who were looking after the dormitories that I'm starting to see all these things flying around and stuff. Anyway, cut a long story short, I only ended at 18 months. My mum and dad couldn't take it anymore because they were worried about me. So they took me out of there. And then I went to a Christian Brothers school, and it was like out of the frying pan into the fire, really. Yeah. And I was abused in the Christian Brothers school by the headmaster, and I was naive and open. And, I was brought up, you must respect authority, you must respect adults and all that, you must do what they say and all that sort of business. So even though I could sense this evil type feeling, I had to go along with it because I was afraid, and the headmaster used to take me into his office, and he'd basically be bumping up and down on me. He would have me on his knee, bumping me up and down. And I can remember clearly, in fact, I've got the vision in my eyes now. I can remember looking down, and he had the most weird tobacco stain, because he used to smoke pipes and stuff, tobacco stained teeth. But I could see this other feeling in his eyes all the time, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but looking back, I could see that he was getting his rocks off, bouncing this poor little lad. Now, whether anything else went on, that's never come back to me, and I don't know whether it did. But, he would keep me out of lessons, Todd, and I'd be missing out on my lessons. I'd be worried about what the biology teacher would think because I was late again. Do you see what I mean? So this is at 12 and 13 years of age, and that really, really had a powerful impact upon me, deep in the psyche, So, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know I was going to share all that stuff, but I think
Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is there's so many people, there's so many paedophilia stories coming out now against, to do with, not all Catholic priests were like this, because some Catholic priests, and I could sense the difference in energies. There was one Catholic priest who I loved with all my heart, and he loved me, and he loved my brother, and he used to look after us. But there was a sense of love about him The others would say it, but there was a sense of something different about them. So I was being able to discern people's mood states and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, I would go along and I would behave in the way that they wanted me to do, you know.
Yeah,
And,
man.
you know,
Yeah.
and all that, you know, and it's sad, really, you know, because I was no angel in drink, you know what I mean? There was a lot of things I did that I'm not very proud about. They were less than loving, you know, but I've come to terms with all that stuff now, you know, and I've said this to you before. I do not want to delude myself anymore on anything at all. I want to be completely and utterly free, right? A free spirit, right? And you know, I certainly don't want to delude anybody else. So that's why I just open my heart, see what comes out
Yeah.
of me gob. And most of the time, it surprises me what's coming out of here, you know. But if it's doing some good to help people, I was afraid all the time, Todd. You know, I didn't want to hurt anybody. And yet, by keeping stuff down, it built up to such a sort of state that when the drink came in, it just came out like an atomic explosion, you know.
Well, you know, yeah. I mean, and if you suppress,
Yeah.
it applies to everything. So if you suppress, and become resentful and all that, guess what you're going to attract to you? Somebody who is feeling the same thing. But I want to go back to what you said about, well, in emphasizing this masculine recent shift or journey or whatever, which your perspective is right in line with that. And this is where I'm coming. You said earlier that we have to own, you know, every part of the journey going back to the Big Bang. I think what I'm seeing with what you're saying and what I've been trying to say is that the masculine, whether he remembers or not, he was Joe on the priest's knee. You know, I don't think we remember nearly any of this stuff. I think the women do, because it's been going on for so long and it has been talked about. Not necessarily the mother to the daughter, because you hear that story, or that adult knew and allowed it, but the sisters talk to each other. See? So that's an energy, I'm saying. That's an energetic positivity, or whatever you want to call it, holiness, or you know, fraternity. You know, I mean, it's just a bond, a sisterhood. But with the men, the masculine energy, you know, I think this stuff is a lot more prevalent than anyone knows. I think it's been swiped by some method or another from so many of us. Has been a prominent control mechanism and device and way of implantation, you know, energetic implantations, control, just distortion into the male frequency. And I think that with people, with men, or masculine energies, such as what you just did right now, sharing these things spontaneously, it's going to trigger epiphanies, revelations, and memories that will be healing to us. Because what's worked for the female energy, the feminine energy, in discussing it and expressing it and supporting, even if there's nothing you could do but listen, okay, and empathize, that's something the men haven't had. The masculine energy hasn't had. Whether it's a female incarnation that's predominantly a masculine energy, or it's a male incarnation who's a masculine energy. They are too conditioned not to talk about it, but this is what we're getting to, which is the same thing you're talking about, is opening the heart in every aspect, because it is the power of the universe, and it has certainly the power to heal and transform in this experience that we're sharing.
Yeah, and you know, I think this thing that goes on about being masculine and feminine, I see myself as both of these things now, sort of almost androgynous. There's sort of no split anymore. And I can sense, you know, it's like the yin and the yang of it. You know, I think that's part of being human. There's this binary relative aspect. But there's another part of me that sort of watches this and is able then to decide what choice to make. You know, there's a thing in my field, you know, there's something called the irritable heart. I don't know whether I've talked about this before, but it's where there's two sides of the nervous system. There's a masculine side and there's a feminine side, you know, and it's also related to the hemispheres of the brain. And when the hemispheres of the brain are falling out with one another, that's like, you know, an argument between male and female or masculine and feminine, then the heart picks that vibration up, right?
Yeah.
But there's a technique now, and I'm very into teaching people very practical, realistic techniques and talking about things like brisk walking and exercise and being in nature and stuff. Because there's some very, very real, simple, practical techniques to help people to ground themselves and to open their heart and stuff, you know. But this situation's called the irritable heart is caused by accentuated antagonism of the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, you know. So how can we change that? Well, you can't really use a thinking technique. You can't really use a cognitive behavioral technique to change it. The way you change it, Todd, is you turn it on its head and you actually breathe mindfully with a positive emotion or a feeling of love. So the way I'm trying to help people with this is most people breathe. I might have mentioned this on the last session, but most people breathe at rest about 12 to 15 breaths per minute. Okay. If we can help people to bring that down to 12 breaths per minute, and then when they've practiced that to go to 9 breaths per minute, excuse me, and then when they've done that then to go to 6 breaths per minute, at 6 breaths per minute, the masculine and the feminine coincide and actually start to work with one another in a coherent state. So it's using breathing. The next way to enhance that is to bring in a positive emotion. So what I'm saying when I'm helping people, you know, I say to them, think of something that brings with it a feeling of love. And a lot of people bring in their children, you know, and that then, so they're using visualization then, right? Morgan, for example, would bring in a grandchild, you know, and she get that feeling of love. So you can then dismiss the grandchild temporarily, you know, and remain with that feeling of open-heartedness and love. Okay. And so if you can breathe that loving feeling at 6 breaths per minute, what actually happens is you remain in this coherent state. When people remain in this coherent state, it sends a magneto-electric effect back to the brain, which causes the brain waves to change into a much more relaxed, cooperative, and coherent state as well. So in other words, I didn't know I was going to talk about this as well, but it's basically hacking our physiology to change psychology. It's exactly the opposite way around. So it's really teaching people this simple technique, which I showed you before, is to basically tap on the heart, put your hands on your heart, bring in the feeling of something you love. Now, if you don't like children and they bring with it a feeling of, I don't like children, dismiss that one. You know, it could be a pet. If it's not a pet and you don't like children and animals, something that you really love, it might be your wallet, you know, for example. That was a joke, that, you know. But it could be a wallet or it could be a load of money. Whatever brings with it that feeling of, oh, this is great, you know, it's to try and use that really. So 3 10-minute sessions a day, Todd. This is to everybody listening. 3 10-minute session a day, right? If they can do that for 90 days, right, I swear to you, I swear it will change their lives completely for the better. Here's the problem though, Todd, in this world. People say, I haven't got time for that. And they're distracted away from spending time with their hearts, you know. How do I know? Because it took me 9 years to understand the significance of it. That the answer's not in here, it's in here, right? And so,
well, I think you know, because of people like you and the work that's been done, you know, people they don't have to go 90 days. They don't have to go 9 years. I mean, this information's moving fast.
yeah,
And that energetic expansion that you made or transformation that you made, even though it's not verbalized in a book or here or there or whatever, it's out there. It's in that holy grid and it affects people. And I think that's a lot of what's happening right now. And going back to the whole masculine thing, you know, I saw a funny post by Augusti Sala today in regard to that. He said, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but he was basically saying, well, you did, you know, which I used to be macho. I used to be, you know, masculine, and he made a joke about it, self-deprecating, in the favor of wisdom. But I think this is what it's come down to is we've been told even before 2012 that a good man is sensitive, that he has empathy and compassion and so on. But something's changed. Something's really changed because in going through this metamorphosis and becoming so soft, so sensitive, we lost all that power that you talked about at the top of the show. Now that power is coming back. And the crazy, insane, paradoxical thing about it is that the power actually amps up as the masculine energy opens his heart and says, well, I love the metaphor. Every single one of us has been molested. Every single one of us has felt the energy of violation and been seduced or been tricked or duped or whatever, and suffered in the sexual power as a result of it. Like you said, suppression, oppression, and it's turned us into something that was distorted. So it's amazing because something so soft, tender, innocent, revealing, authentic, raw and real from the heart, where we got hit the hardest, man to man, gives us power like we've never seen before. And
I feel that very, very much. I feel like the father protector. I feel that that's really come back in a strong way, but in a balanced way as well, not in any sort of power driven way, but it's almost like sitting back and watching what's going on in the world and knowing that you can leave most stuff alone, right? But if ever that power is needed, you could step in, right, and take some action and then back off again, So I feel like I feel like a lion, I feel like almost, it's this lion and the lamb sort of feeling, really. But before I had any balance, the feeling would come in, right? But there'd be no balance because the ego was in charge, So I do feel balanced. The other thing is as well, about, we talk about hieros, gamos, and stuff like that, and I've been tuned into energetic synthesis for a long time now. And I'm being asked to give talks and using certain breathing techniques to help with people's kundalini awakening and all this stuff that we're talking about. There are simple energetic techniques to help people get this energy past their waist and up through the chakras, And my view is that you can have a physical connection, but also if the chakras are aligned, it's almost like a clamp. It's like a 7-stage clamp, right, where the physical and the spiritual clamp with one another, and then whoosh, then you get that massive universal consciousness that goes on then. And more people are getting this, but it's just that they don't quite know how. And so once again, it's opening the heart and opening the throat and allowing all this energy to come in and balance itself, really. So once again, it's about getting out of the way to allow this process to happen, And Todd, it's not as difficult as people think.
No, no, it's uncomfortable. The thing is, and going back to the emphasis on the masculine energy, it's uncomfortable not because it hurts. It's uncomfortable because we've never freaking done it before.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. We even read a lot about it in the last 2 or 3 years, and there's been some good male writers out there talking about, the masculine. Daniel Nielsen's one of them. But this is different, man. This is like you said, you got to own everything going back to the Big Bang. If we are everything, if we are one, that means there is absolutely nothing that we can separate ourselves from. So one way or another, we all went through the same thing. And I think this is significant too, that you bring up the upbringing in the Roman Catholic Church. My first 10 years was in the Roman Catholic Church. The power of that around the world, all the things that are attributed to it. This is all part of us. It's all part of us, and the liberation brings the power. That's what I'm saying. It's such a soft kind of discussion. Maybe a few tears come out, and hey, brother, this is what happened to me. This is what, man, I'm sorry, brother, that happened to you. And then to come out of a situation or an energy like that and to be more empowered. This power that I'm feeling isn't so much one of even having to make a stand or defend anyone or her or whatever the case is, or family or whatever. This is a power that's so huge that it speaks for itself, and there's nothing external that's going to even F with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I feel it.
Oh, no, I understand that perfectly. It's almost like the flow, right, it's just flowing really more and more and more. And it does intensify those deeper feelings as well. I mean, mostly I've got this feeling of love, but there's also a feeling of sadness as well that goes with this,
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing is fear. I think I've said this before, but fear, it's an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence is shot through with it. And what that means is all humans are basically fear conditioned all the way through. And this energy that's coming through now is unlocking us from that, really. Once we see it, once we feel it, once we let go of it, then more power comes in, right, in a very positive way. So there's many years of reconstruction that lay ahead. But I think before reconstruction, there's got to be a disintegration of the old paradigm, and that exists within us as well. And that's what people are feeling now. I mean, I feel like my liver's in where my heart should be, right, and my head's so far up my bum. I've not been seeing clearly for ages, but it's almost like my whole physical body is being moved around in various ways. I spent a whole week, right, on the toilet, just evacuating. It's almost like my organs had been liquefied, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a bit gross, this, but I'm just trying
No,
to explain.
I totally understand purging. I mean, that's a big part of what we've all been going through, these purges, because there is so much involved. It's not just the physical; it's mental, emotional, other aspects of the spiritual to varying degrees. We got past memories, future memories. We got visits. We got this. We got that. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There really is. But yeah, I mean, to me, and I think too that we're sitting here collectively, it appears, and we're waiting for spaceships, and we're waiting for disclosure, and we're waiting for justice, and it really starts here. And what I mean by that is the more we talk about this stuff, like in this case, in this example, masculine energy to masculine energy, about the shift we never talked about, right? The more we do that, the more revealing of the truth that we are, the external is going to mirror that in our collective experience. So for us who would like to see full disclosure, for instance, of the Vatican and all its BS for all these years, we need to reveal ourselves to ourselves and to our brothers and sisters, and understanding that we're at a point now and a level of compassion that whatever happened and whoever did what and why and all that, we're going to deal with a fully unconditional, open, compassionate, loving heart.
I couldn't agree more, mate. I couldn't agree more, because we're all in this together, and it's all about creating space for all their stuff to come up and rebalance itself as well. Forgiveness, as is, you don't forgive them. You're basically taking the hooks out of yourself, so you get more freedom. So all this forgiven, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. Well, you're going to be trapped in that all the time, because if you can't forget, then you're trapped in the past, and you keep taken back. So it's beyond mind. All this stuff we're doing is open heart takes us beyond mind, where the real freedom is. And that's the thing. And the other thing is, I've stopped trying to work it all out now, because it's too complex. So I just try
you can't.
Just try and take the day with a clean sheet at the beginning of the day, and just try and do what emerges in front of me to the best of my ability. And Todd, honestly, mate, I haven't got a clue what's going on. Not a clue. I just say to me heart, give us some idea what's on the cards today, and I'll try and do my best, because
That's right.
And it's working, mate. I feel okay. I'm cleaning myself. I feel clean. I feel open. I feel, there's a lot of work still to be done, for me and for everybody else. But it's all about the cutting edge of evolution, not even because we've got free will choice, not even God knows what's coming up,
That's right. The free will choice we had took place before we got here.
Yeah, no, I think
that
I think the curriculum was set. I think, but if you fancy it, if you want tea or coffee, you can have coffee or you can have tea. But I think,
it's not predestination. It's we agreed to the plan.
Yeah.
Pre-planned, and then we get out here, and then that's when the fun starts.
Yeah. Well, I say I was only joking. What? I'd like to change the plan. And the thing is, Star Trek's been coming back to me a lot, because the new Star Trek, when they have that holodeck, that's what my life seems to be like. It's a combination of Star Trek and Stargate. I feel like Daniel Jackson. I've got this science side of me, but I've got this other like weird side of me. And in academia where I work now, people do see me as a weirdo. I frighten the bloody daylights out of them with this stuff that's coming in. But I know, on the thing before, I was talking about photons and phonons and protons and all these things. These are the things that I sort of intuitively understand about the different dimensions. But I haven't been able to link it all up yet. But that's on its way, So maybe next time we can talk about quantum disentanglement and all those things, I don't know.
That sounds pretty complicated to me, man.
Yeah, it is. But, I like to say the words. As I said to you before, people say to me, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a consultant in psycho, neuro, endocrino, immunohematology. And they say, what's that? It's called vibrational medicine, right? And it's all about resonance. It's all about energy. It's all about frequency. But this is the one that's going to bring it all together. Right?
That's it. That's it. Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate it, Dr. Joe.
No, thanks, mate. Lovely to talk to you.
You and your lovely wife. I don't know how she puts up with you, but yeah.
No. Well, I don't either. Do you know my wife? She's the most sensitive soul on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. If she knew I was talking about her now, she'd kill me. But my wife works. She doesn't do people at all. She works with plants and she works with animals. And she uses crystals and she uses dowsing and she talks to them. And all the plants and all the animals respond and you can see them, And I don't know why I'm talking about it, but she is the most wonderful creature on this planet, And, she was chosen for me a long time before I had any choice in the matter. So, Anyway, there you go, mate. I do understand. I do understand this bonding thing at a deep level.
I know you do. I know you do. I think they chose us. I don't think we chose them. Yeah. That's my personal opinion.
I say to her a lot, have you made a mistake?
Yeah.
And then she says swear words, but, whatever. Anyway, mate, it's lovely to talk to you. And thanks very much.
You're braver than me discussing those things. All right. Yeah, we'll get together in another couple of weeks or so. We made that. Yeah, we got some stuff to do. I'll be reaching out.
Okay.
All right.
God bless you, mate. See you soon.
See y'all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.